Peace. It's been a while. Um, it's rare now that I've found, where I used to find it so easy, relatively speaking, to push the button and just share. I'm a lot more contemplative about sharing. What do I share? What don't I share? Do I feel inspired to share? Or am I just doing something to hear my own voice? Um, this this has been one of those times or one of those occasions where I'm definitely feeling compelled to share, inspired to share, and as with I can't understate, um, I can't overstate um, the impact that my near-death experience um, has had on my life, uh, in all facets, and they're ever unfolding. Um, the near-death experience, the the heart attack itself, the physical aspects of recovery, and I shouldn't say necessarily, maybe that's not the right word, recovery, but the healing from the heart attack and the subsequent surgery, and then the prognosis, how things are going to work or how things are going to play out now. And the prognosis, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, and I've shared this with only a very, very scant few amount of people, and I've had mixed reactions. But the nature of the damage, the existing damage, um, my heart, my heart is in bad shape. That was something very clearly expressed to me by both the surgeon himself and the cardiologist, and their prognosis for me um, was not oh, you're all better now. It wasn't that. It was, and if I'm going to be perfectly plain and truthful and transparent, um, I remember the occasion that I was sitting with um, the cardiologist who was part of the surgery. He didn't perform the surgery, but he was in the surgery room as it was being done by the surgeon, and their discussions were with me afterward were bleak. It was bleak. We did all we could do, but you have existing damage that was already done to your heart. Your heart is in bad shape. These are actual quotes verbatim. Um, the one that really, like when they were saying things to me, both collectively or individually on at different times and different appointments, where um, they started making suggestions to me. Um, if you've got things to do, you should probably do them. If you've got some money, you might want to travel. If you have loose ends, you might want to tie them up. Again, verbatim. Um, uh, I remember one specific occasion going to the cardiologist's office for a follow up, and I remember him being in. It was a little bit different. It was, we got into the meat and potatoes of their prognosis, and he apologized to me. He's like, "I'm really sorry, Scott. You got a really shitty deal." And to see the emotion on his face, it was like, "Oh, all right." Like, there's that aspect of, I think we've all heard, denial, anger, bargaining, and acceptance and closure, whatever the stages of grief are. And I can assure you, to hear these things from qualified, and well-respected doctors, surgeons, specialists, and they're all coming back at you with the same information, it can be quite jarring to your perceptions of mortality, albeit even having the near-death experience, and it all plays together. It all plays together. Um, but what their prognosis, they basically told me 3 to 5 years. We bought you some time. Another verbatim quote. We bought you some time. Um, amidst all the other things they said, and their suggestions to, if you got things to do them. Um, I'm getting emotional right now just remembering the experience of it, recalling it, and you know, going back to those stages of grief within myself. And I did. I proceeded to make plans, and things, and move forward, and all right, well, what do I want to do? What is most important to me? What are the things, people, experiences? It hits you hard the moment you understand the reality of it. Um, you know, and I remember repeating this to other people who, as I shared this with them, experiencing like their disbelief, their denial of it, and this was another verbatim quote from the doctor. "No, Scott, this is as real as it gets. Like, are you hearing me?" The doctor having that conversation with me. So I was moving in that direction, and they told me that what the prognosis was, like what to expect, how this is going to unfold, unravel. They said, within a certain amount of time, within that 3 to 5 year period, you're going to start experiencing angina. Um, and I don't have time in my capture to explain the variety. There's different slight variances in types of angina, but the type that they were expressing was basically, angina is a micro heart attack. It's the blood vessels in your heart, in the heart muscle, that are shutting down. And they expressed to me that probably within the 3 to 5 year period, you will start experiencing angina, um, whatever, and it's a relatively, it's a process, and you're going to start experiencing it more frequently. And I understood what they were talking about. I do have a limited background in the medical field, and I understood what they were saying, but it didn't register. Denial. It's like we're talking about somebody else. We're talking about a patient. We're not talking about me, of course. The acceptance of our own mortality. And this past March, April, I had bought the plane tickets, made travel plans to visit some very close friends in the UK, and about a month prior to the trip, all of a sudden I began to have those angina attacks, and they scared the shit out of me. Straight up. Um, and I ended up canceling that trip, and it was devastating, for myself, and you know, I retreated, and I retreated and I isolated, and I was scared. I was scared because not for the ultimate outcome, having had the near death experience, but the fear that I was experiencing was the not only the pain of the angina attacks, the episodes of angina, but the memory and the traumatic experience of the pain, the actual physical pain of surgery, recovery, having a heart attack. It was brutal. It was brutal. It was a pain unlike any other that we might experience in life. Um, and I considered myself to be one of those people that have had some pretty high pain threshold experiences, and the heart attack definitely capped it off. And so this is April, March, April, and here we are now in June. And I felt myself declining, um, declining emotionally, declining emotionally. I felt myself giving up, release, like surrendering to it, like, okay, well, shit, all right. And um, frankly, I was amazed at how quickly it became a pity party, and I'm ashamed of that. Ashamed, embarrassed how quickly I allowed that within my own psyche, that became a pity party. Um, and in more recent days, um, I realized in a moment of clarity after a conversation with a friend that I wasn't living. I wasn't embracing the life that I do have remaining. Um, and it was a powerful exchange, very powerful, and it snapped me out of it. And ever since then, it was a combination of conversations that I had, um, with some very special friends. And oh, man, want to hold it together for just a little while longer. um, I, over the course of my life, have been a fan. Um, I've enjoyed a great deal of poetry. I did a fair bit of reading, mostly for pleasure and whatever, but it wasn't until I experienced poetry, namely the first substantial experience with poetry was Rumi. And I remember I was getting sober at the time. It was a gift. A friend of mine at the time knew what I was going through getting sober. I was a mess, and very, very kindly, very compassionately, they offered me this book, Rumi, the Illuminated Rumi. And my brain was so scrambled that I didn't. I appreciated it. I accepted it warmly. I received it, but I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand that somebody could write about something so beautiful when everything that I had known prior to that seemed to be nothing but chaos. Um, and over the course of time, having the good fortune to I've got them right here. I've been. This is the book. This is it right here. This is it. The Illuminated Rumi. This is the very book that I was given. It's got coffee stains all over the cover. Um, it's got it's got a lot of years on it. We're talking 2001. This book was given to me, um, and not long after that, maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years after that, somebody suggested that, well, if you like Rumi, you might like this too, The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, and they were right. But as time went on, I always kind of had this underlying feeling that this poetry, like a movie, it was fiction. That these were fantasies, dreams, that they were magical, that they weren't based in any sort of reality. That these things were just the wonderful um, conjurings of somebody who knew how to write. Um, and it escaped me. It was beyond me. But over the course of time, healing from my experiences as a young man, as a boy, going into adulthood, recovering and healing and gaining some sobriety and clear headedness, getting sober. Um, what I've experienced now since having these more recent, like within the past couple of months, and that pity party, and that the reality of what was unfolding in my life and what I was doing with my remaining time, with any time. And after those wonderful conversations with my friends, and I don't think they realize the impact that they had on me, and I would like to extend an apology to them for the pain that it caused them. Um, I don't think it's natural for a person to witness the responses. I don't think it's natural when I don't think we're supposed to. We all have that. I can't speak for anybody else, but I know over the course of my life, at least once, well, what if I died? Who would be at my funeral in kind of a flippant, humorous way? Well, who would show up? And what would it be like? Um, and I can tell you firsthand experience, it's painful. It's painful in a compassionate. I don't think I. It was challenging for me to. Challenging and powerful and moving to experience their reactions to my prognosis. Um, and I love them very much, and that's the thing. I want to close with this because I don't think my capture is going to allow much. But if you would, at some point, if you would, in order, we oftentimes have the idea of love. I love my friends. I love them. Um, and oftentimes we have this idea of when somebody mentions the word love, we immediately or frequently go immediately to the idea of romantic or sexual love, the love between partners in a romantic relationship, a marriage, a union. Um, and the type of love that I'm referring to um, is not that. It's the kind of love that I experienced, that I received from when I had my near death experience, what I felt, what I sensed, what I came to understand myself to be in my essence, not in this physical form. And I would like to share this with you because this is yet another um, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, the complete works, but specifically and most iconically, I think we know Elizabeth Barrett Browning from Sonnets from the Portuguese, and specifically um, the poem "How Do I Love Thee." And I would challenge you to, when we think of love, as I mentioned a moment ago, the idea of romantic love, yes, and in this particular poem, she's writing a letter to her husband Robert. I'm not talking about that. What I would offer to you is, if you read this poem in two ways, and this is what I've been contemplating. This is the thing that's been going through me. The privilege. What would I do with the rest of my life? I would love. That's what my near death experience taught me. And I would challenge you to read this very poem, Sonnets from the Portuguese, How Do I Love Thee? But I challenge you to read this same poem and remove the word thee. She's talking to her husband. How do I love my husband? So, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach, when, etc., etc. And she's talking to her husband. I would challenge you to remove that one word, thee. And this is what I'm getting at. How do I love? Let me count the ways. I love to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach, when feeling out of sight. For the ends of being an ideal grace, I love to the level of every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight, etc. I would challenge anyone. I mean, this is a used college book, but you easily find it in Google. How do I love thee? But try reading that poem without, and own it. How do I love? How do I want to love? I want to love my friends and my family and my coworkers and my neighbors. This is how I choose to love them. And when we think of love, romantic love or love in general, with the idea of reciprocity, that I will love as long as I'm loved in return, I think we're missing the point. I know I was. That type of love is not love. It's something else. The gratitude, and I don't regret one moment of that pity party. I don't regret one moment of those angina attacks, because it's really showing me how valuable things really are, and what is and isn't valuable, and what we are and what we are not. What is the meaning of life? To love, and let me count the ways that I do that. And to have occasions and experiences and people in my life that allow me to be authentically me, and love in a way that they can understand, in a way that it's a privilege. It's a privilege. And I thank you for the privileges of allowing me to share bits and pieces of my life with you. Um, it means more than I have words for, and I thank you for that. Peace that surpasses all understanding. Thank you.